Hello guys, Flanker here. Over the past few weeks, I've seen quite a few questions from players about status effects and their mechanics. Since not all of these effects are intuitive and their description don't always provide complete information, I decided to make a guide on this topic. I hope it answers all your questions, but if not, feel free to ask any additional questions in the comments below. Before we begin, a quick shout out to my Twitch subs and a kind reminder that you can support my channel by subscribing and liking this video. In Ashes of Creation, status effects are dynamic conditions affecting players and mobs and influencing their performance, damage output, mobility, and many other stats. Mastering status effects is crucial as they can significantly affect the course of the battle, allowing players to exploit enemy weaknesses or protect allies in critical moments. Each class has access to different status effects, which means that in a group setting, classes can combine their strengths by using complementary effects to maximize their collective power in combat situations.
Yeah, when we talk about status conditions or like keyword conditions and the promotion of those effects, there's going to be the bread and butter that each class kit has access to, right? And when they're kind of creating the type of rotation with their ability system, they're going to want to emphasize those interactions that amplify or promote a particular type of status condition. So they'll have within the kit their own interactions that they'll be able to leverage. But then in addition to that, they're going to have keyword status effects that help to either promote other classes' keyword status effects or are the executed promotions of other classes' initial status conditions, right? And when you think about the intent of the design is that players are servicing themselves from a solo perspective when they want to go out and solo grind and solo experience and fulfill the quests. But when they come together to form a party to encounter group content or a raid to encounter raid content, that the interconnectivity between those classes synergizes with these keyword promotions and or effects. And there's a way to execute on that is successful and is effective, or a way that's not. And that's kind of the skill ceiling / skill cap that requires interaction and cooperation and synchronization because there are limited time windows in which those keywords can get emphasized or executed upon when utilizing the ability.
Now, let's go through each status effect individually and break down how each one works. Bleeding lasts for 6 seconds and deals 15% damage per second in this example, totaling 90% damage over the effect's duration. The damage percentage may vary depending on the skill that applies the debuff. Bleeding can escalate into a more powerful status effect, hemorrhaging, which lasts for 5 seconds and deals 20% damage every half second in this case. As a result, the target would take a total of 200% damage over 10 ticks. The next two status effects synergize in a similar way. Burning lasts for 8 seconds and deals fire damage each second. However, reapplying it can extend the duration up to 24 seconds. And the longer the burning status effect lasts on a target, the stronger the conflagrating effect will be. This effect converts all remaining burning damage on the target into an accelerated dot lasting 4 seconds. Additionally, the converted damage is increased by 30%. Next, we have a chilled effect that reduces speed by 50%. It lasts 6 seconds by default, but the duration can be increased up to 15 seconds with subsequent applications. Certain skills can escalate chilled into frozen, making the target unable to move or rotate for 4 seconds. But that is not all. When you deal lightning damage to a frozen target, they receive additional damage from the shattered effect. This can only be triggered once every 4 seconds per caster on the same target. According to the description, if there are several mages in a group, each one can take advantage of this burst window against a frozen target. I personally haven't played as a mage, so I can't confirm this 100%, but I'm sure one of the mages can confirm or refute this in the comments. Another status effect related to mages is volatile. It reduces magical mitigation by 15% for 6 seconds, and the duration can be extended up to 15 seconds with reapplications. Next, we have the snared effect, which is essentially a slow debuff, reducing the target speed by 25% per stack. As someone who played as a ranger, this archetype has many skills that apply the snare effect. Moreover, certain abilities such as airstrike will root enemies with the snared status effect, preventing them from moving for 4 seconds. Many classes also have the ability to apply the staggered effect, which reduces the enemy's physical disable evasion for 6 seconds. As a result, you will have a higher chance to apply physical disable effects on the target. Like many other status effects, the duration of this debuff can be extended up to 15 seconds. Targets under the tripped effect cannot move or act for 3 seconds, and this effect does not break when the damage is taken. The stunned effect is quite similar to tripped, but the activation conditions are different and its duration depends on the specific skill that applies it. Then, there is the disarmed status effect, which prevents an opponent from using weapon combo attacks for 5 seconds. Next, we have several status effects that are well known to players who chose the Bard archetype for their characters. Demoralized debuff reduces the target's damage multiplier by 10% for 8 seconds, and the duration can be extended up to 20 seconds. Humiliated is even stronger, reducing the target's damage output by 30% for 8 seconds. However, this debuff doesn't affect the target's damage against the applier, so it's best used in a group. Glee status effect is simply a healing effect that restores 60% of the applier's power. Pep provides a 20% movement speed buff that lasts for 5 seconds. Nimble also lasts for 5 seconds and provides a 50% buff to base evasion. Incapacitated is essentially a sleep effect that breaks if the target takes any damage. However, there is an exception. Spirit damage doesn't wake a sleeping target. The only skill currently in the game that deals spirit damage is the Bard's Dark Lullaby. Next, there is the Riled status effect, which reduces target's evasion by 30% for 10 seconds. At least that's how I understand it, and if I'm wrong by any chance, please feel free to correct me. The Shaken debuff reduces the target's physical mitigation by 15% for 6 seconds, with the duration extendable up to 15 seconds. The Infected status effect prevents the player with this debuff from receiving healing. Currently, none of the existent archetypes have skills that apply this debuff, but certain mobs can do it. Marked also qualifies as a status effect. When a ranger uses any of their marks on a target, it basically becomes marked. The Dazed debuff reduces magical casting speed by 25% for 8 seconds. The duration can be extended up to 20 seconds, which is quite significant for such a powerful debuff. Shocked status effect allows additional lightning damage of 25%. Each proc consumes 1 stack and the debuff lasts for 6 seconds. The Silenced status effect makes it impossible for the target to use both physical and magical abilities for 5 seconds. Weakened reduces physical attack speed by 25% for 8 seconds. Wounded reduces healing by 5% per stack with a maximum of 10 stacks, resulting in a 50% healing reduction. Finally, Solace is a buff that can be gained by a player who transfers HP to a Bard, or by the Bard themselves if they transfer their HP to a group member. It allows the player to receive up to a 35% increase in healing based on how much health was lost through the Bard's Gambit. Now that we are familiar with the status effects, there is another important thing to keep in mind, which is diminishing returns.
Have you given any thought towards adding debuff protection, such as having immunity to stuns for some seconds after having been stunned during a siege battle? And there was actually some questions regarding this beyond just sieges.
So just to be clear, what you're talking about is really called diminishing returns. And when it comes to status conditions, the ability to apply certain passive resistance to status conditions, if you've suffered from a status condition of a particular type, you get an increased resistance against those, and that scales. So if by chance you do get stunned maybe a couple of times, excuse me, it would be near impossible to stun you for a third or fourth time, right? And then you get to save that higher resistance for some period of time. And you know, that just makes the gameplay more compelling. We've all played games where you can get stun locked, and that is a really bad feeling. And it's not even fun for the person who's doing the stun lock. It might be, you know, yeah, it's just not a good, compelling type of gameplay. So in order to kind of avoid that, and to accommodate a massively multiplayer setting, you have to utilize things like diminishing returns that can increase your resistances when you suffer those types of effects.
Currently, there are 3 types of immunities against hard CC and movement CC: snare and chill immunity, trip and stun immunity, and incapacitate immunity. Each lasts for 10 seconds and is triggered automatically when a target suffers from too frequent applications of the corresponding status effect. So it's always a good idea to keep an eye on your enemy's debuff bar to avoid wasting your CC. I would like to thank the creators of AshesCodex.com, a database containing a lot of useful information about Ashes of Creation. If you want to learn more about the game, definitely check it out. I'll leave a link in the description. If this video was helpful, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. I am Flanker, and I'll see you on Friday on my Twitch stream.